Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. A while ago I did a Chatty Get Ready with me talking about this common refrain that I think quality piercers and particularly APP members hear online when we talk about minimum piercing standards and the APP, which is y'all are just a cult. You just hate non-APP members. And I'll link that video here, but that was sort of a general video of me sort of talking about that concept to everyone. And I decided I wanted to make a more specific video just for other piercers and other studios out there, because I hear this refrain a lot as an APP member, that we all just think we're better than everyone else and it's some secret society club and we hate on all the piercers who aren't members. And that really couldn't be further from the truth. So an important thing to note is that most APP members did not start out as APP members. Now that's starting to change as studios have been around for a while and we're starting to get new generations of piercers in who have been able to work in membership studios for basically their entire career. But for most of us in the industry and most of us who get this kind of feedback online, we spent the beginning chunk of our career not in APP member studios at all. I started off my career working in what most of the time would have considered a street shop, using externally threaded jewelry from Metal Mafia and Plainful Pleasures. We were not even fully sterilizing everything. We were cold soaking a lot of stuff back when I started. When I was first a client of that studio, it was carpeted and they smoked in the back room. So my start was not in APP membership. And not in high quality piercing. And I'll be honest, a lot of the piercings that we did at that studio did still heal. And many of them healed and were fine. But a lot of them didn't. And a lot of clients had issues that led to scarring and bumps and irritations and rejection and migration. A lot of my jewelry fell apart and failed. I would see clients deal with what definitely looked like an infection pretty soon after piercing and not really have a good understanding or grasp on what I could have done differently or if it was even my fault or their fault at all. And a lot of times when things would go wrong or there would be an issue, we would just throw tea tree oil or aspirin paste at it. And I didn't really understand on a deeper level what was going wrong with the piercings at the time. And honestly, one of the biggest things that stood out to me at those studios was the main concern was always money. It wasn't necessarily doing the best piercings or the safest piercings or the cleanest piercings. It was just the bottom line and the bills and the expenses of the studio. And yeah, that's part of running a business, but I really wanted to know if there was something else and something more out there. And my first boss and mentor told me all the time, the APP is a cult, it's a cool kids club, you pay a bunch of money, you don't really get anything out of it, the standards don't matter, they don't make a difference. And I know a lot of folks really do believe that. And I believed that for about a year or two, but I just kept seeing little bits of information that I couldn't reconcile in my brain. For example, we were still cold soaking things at that studio and I was taught that that was completely fine. But the more I researched and the more I learned about sterilization and autoclaves, the more I knew it wasn't fine. And if that wasn't fine, maybe everything that they'd been telling me about the jewelry materials wasn't fine. I ended up quitting that studio and leaving full-time piercing altogether and working night shift at Walmart for a little bit before I could get another job as a front of house and a manager at an APP studio in the area. And the difference I saw was night and day. Sure, we still had clients who dealt with bumps and migration and irritation and problems with their piercings, but I went from seeing that on about 30 to 40% of the piercings we were doing at my old shop to maybe 10% of the piercings we did at this studio. And even just handling the jewelry, the quality difference was so apparent to me. With the externally threaded stuff, regularly I would screw things together and I would feel the threading seize, or we would deal with gems falling out, and there were pieces that I would assemble or work with that I could just tell felt cheap. I would feel gemstones loose in settings, and I would see a piece of jewelry that just, doesn't look very nice. And I started working with the higher quality jewelry and I didn't have nearly the same incidence of that things. Every now and again, yes, an order would come in, something would be wrong, there would be an error or a mistake, we would get a piece that wasn't as well made, but it was no big deal to send it back and have it fixed and have it replaced. And they were very understanding and honest about manufacturing errors and things that can happen. And the more I worked in APP studios, the more I went and traveled and visited other studios, the more I learned and educated myself and got access to educational resources through the APP, the more that I realized that this really was something that was founded in science and fact and research and knowledge, and that there were so many indisputable practices that they were teaching, backed up with medical research and scientific evidence to show that this was a safer, better way of doing things. And I just thought back to how many times I'd heard, well, we've always done it this way, so it's fine. And for me as a kid, like that was one of the things that I struggled with a religious upbringing, is being told it's because God says it's this way. We've always done it this way. And my response was always being, yeah, but why? Why are we doing it this way? What if there is a better way? What if there's something else out there? And I think the APP does a really good job of getting at the heart of that why and constantly exploring, is there a better way we could be doing this? Is there a safer way we could be doing this? Is there a way that we can do this that is better for clients? And I know when you're in that place, because I've been in that place, it's very hard to see this seemingly like insurmountable list of APP standards and feel like there's no way you'll get to that level, or it's unpractical, or it's an impossible expense for your business, because it is. The safer the piercing you do, the more expensive it is. That's just a fact. And it's very easy to see the way APP members and APP piercers talk about these minimum standards and feel like, oh, well, if I'm not doing it to this level, I'm just not cool enough then. And the thing is, most of us were never doing it to this level to start. Most of us were not doing great work when we first started piercing, and we had to get out there and learn and grow and make those changes and improvements. The APP isn't about being a cool kids club and kicking out people who don't meet those standards. It's about making education accessible and setting standards so that we can all rise to meet this higher level of work and care, so that we can do the best and safest piercings for our clients. And realistically, that should be our goal. It shouldn't be how much money we can make as a studio. Yes, we should want to make enough money to keep the business open and to live comfortably, right? We all deserve that. But our clients also deserve safe, properly done services. And you might be surprised that people are willing to pay for those safe, properly done services. And the standards don't exist to make you feel bad or make you feel guilty. They exist as a way to protect people and protect clients and make sure we're doing the best work possible. And the biggest takeaway is that if someone really didn't like you, if someone really didn't care, they just wouldn't say anything. They would just let you fail and fall on your own. The fact that the APP puts out so much education, that its piercers tend to be so accessible online, so willing to offer critique and guidance and advice, business advice, technical advice, whatever the case may be, it's because they care. So when they say, hey, you're doing this and it's not up to standards and it's not safe, it's not them trying to be mean or bully you. It's literally them saying, hey, once upon a time, I probably did this too, and I learned that it's not really safe or a good idea. Allow me to, completely for free, give you the education and the information that I have spent years, decades sometimes, learning and gathering on my own. Let me simply give this to you and make it easy for you to learn from my mistakes and do things better and safer for your clients. Now, to the piercers out there watching this, we all know that the educational forums can get pretty sassy and pretty nasty sometimes. I came up in the days of the Learning Forum where any ever so slight mistake on any image would be met with, hang up your needles, quit piercing, you're a hack. It didn't matter who you were, it didn't matter what you did, it was cutthroat. And I think we as an industry did learn that that brutal honesty was far more about the brutality than it ever was about the honesty. And it was about people in positions of power getting big inflated egos and being dicks on the internet. But the industry has grown a lot since then. And these days, interactions in professional forums tend to be, honestly, incredibly polite, incredibly informative. I very rarely see people be downright nasty or rude. What I do see is people give education about genuinely very unsafe or dangerous practices, and a lot of folks be unwilling to hear that what they're doing is unsafe. And I get it. The ego element of things is hard to conquer. When I was working at that first studio, the first time that I heard that basically everything I had been taught was wrong and I was doing things poorly, shattered something in my worldview. And my initial response was to be completely resistant to it. There's no way I had spent a year working hard, slaving away at being an apprentice, working 6-7 days a week for all of it to be for naught, for the work that I was doing to be bad. The person telling me that just had to be being mean. And that was my ego responding. And a few hours after I heard that, I was able to set my ego aside a little bit and look at the facts and look at the information they gave me and the critique and the feedback and the resources they sent me and really read them and go, oh man, there is a lot of scientific evidence, there's a lot of medical evidence, and there is a lot of really good personal experience evidence from other incredible piercers to show me that a lot of what I'm doing is not as safe as it could be. And it's a hard thing to confront. And I know how confronting it can make you feel very easily like you're just hated or you're not good enough or any of those things. But if you can set the ego aside long enough to really listen to what's being said, I promise you, there are folks like myself, like Ryan, like Luis, like Brian Skelly, like AJ, Shorty, whose inboxes will always be open, who, yes, the feedback you receive might not be what you want to hear, but it'll always be honest, it'll always be genuine, it'll always be factual, and it'll usually always be backed up with concrete resources to help you make a change, to help you get better with sterilization, better techniques, better opportunities. The amount of piercers who've messaged me for critique and feedback on their work, and I've had to give them a lot of negative critique, who've been able to hear that with grace and still continue having a conversation. I've given them referrals for studios to apply for, people to shadow in their area. I've spoken up to help them make connections with shadowing, strangers that I don't know, that I've never spoken with, whose work needs improvement. And not just am I telling them, hey, it needs improvement. If they're willing to continue to gauge and ask me those questions, I'll call up a friend and be like, hey, I have this piercer here who's an hour away from you, who's working on getting better and seems promising. Could you fit them in for a shadow? Could you get them in there to try and help them with what's going on? The industry, any industry, has its bad eggs, and it's people who are shitty and mean and petty and nasty. If you watch any kind of hair or makeup videos online, construction videos, car videos, every single industry has those people who are know-it-alls who exist to just talk down to everyone else and be rude and be nasty and be mean and never, ever, ever get over themselves. I'm not going to pretend that piercing doesn't have those people. I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't one of those people for a time period. There was a time period after I left that abusive situation in Florida where I was just full of so much anger and frustration at what I had experienced, and it just filled me with so much rage to see these egregiously poorly done piercings on clients and dealing with clients day in and day out having these problems that I lashed out and I took it out online. And that's not behavior that I'm proud of, and that's not, I think, a good reflection of how we should behave in the industry. And it's something that I will be apologizing for probably until the end of my piercing career. But it came from a place of genuinely wanting to see safer, better piercings done for people and the frustration at seeing harm caused by bad piercings. And impact matters over intent. My intent was to try and promote safer piercing. The impact was I was kind of a bitch on the internet. I think it's a phase that a lot of piercers go through, and I think it's that phase of people who are in the membership that reflects so poorly and makes people think that it's full of a lot of bullies and a lot of negativity. And again, I'm saying this as someone who wasn't immune from going through that phase either. But I think the industry is growing, and we're seeing less of that phase, or it's shorter and less intense with a lot of younger piercers. But there's also a lot of folks who've been around a little bit longer, like I have, who've kind of gone through that phase and gotten over it, who are willing to do whatever possible for anyone who is genuinely motivated to do good, safe piercing. This is information and education that a lot of us sacrificed and really gave up a lot to access. I mean, I went to an APP conference once and ate nothing but peanut butter on bread for almost the whole week, just to be there and get access to the education taught in those classes. And then just to turn around and type up as much as what I learned to give to other piercers for free as I could, just because I wanted to see that education out there. The APP is an organization full of passionate, motivated piercers who want to see the best for this industry and who do really genuinely care about safety. No organization, no industry is perfect. If I had $1 for every time I saw a video of hairdressers beefing about technique or car people beefing about car stuff, I could retire from piercing happily. It exists in every industry, and piercing isn't immune from that. But that doesn't mean that it's not full of really wonderful people who really do just want to offer help and guidance. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that the people who are being harsh online are entirely wrong. A lot of times they're right in what they're saying. They're just wrong in their tone of voice and how they're saying it. But for me, when I look at the APP, when I look at how much educational access it makes available, when I look at how hard the volunteers work to put together events and to create educational resources, and when I look at how many of the member base would open their studio to someone in their area who needed education and who needed a chance so willingly, when I see how many piercers would hop on a phone call at 10 at night in their time to offer advice to another piercer, when I see piercers going out of their way to take videos in the middle of a busy shift just so that they can send a clip of a technique to someone else, a stranger half of the time in a forum, just to help them learn, just to help them do better, I see a community of compassionate individuals who really care. And yeah, sometimes are jerks on the internet. But at the end of the day, we'll still go above and beyond to make education accessible and to make things safer for clients. And I think that is one of the most beautiful things about the Association of Professional Piercers. So if you are not yet a member, if you've maybe heard negative things about the organization, I would encourage you to check it out for yourself, to try it out for yourself, and to come into it with the mentality of really genuinely trying to put your ego aside and really trying to put your client first in everything that you do. And also remember that we're all always still learning. There is no one, not a single member of the APP, who isn't still learning something and who doesn't still have an area of their practice that they could be better at. All of the way up to the people on the board and the people you look up to the most. If you were to message them and say, what is it that you're struggling with right now? I bet any amount of money they will say something incredibly normal like, man, my doffs have been off recently, or I'm refining this technique with surface piercings, or I had a bad transfer on a philtrum that shook me, so I gotta work on my transfers. We are all always learning, always growing, always improving, and modern medicine and science is always changing. What is right now and what is common safe practice now, 50, 60 years from now is probably going to be looked back on as, oh my God, we did that? The same way we look back on piercing with no gloves and not using autoclaves and using antifreeze occasionally as a skin prep. So if we aren't going to be open to continuously changing and growing with our understanding of the world around us, we'll always be left behind. To me, the APP is an organization of people who are trying to stay ahead of those changes and who are all open to change. So I really encourage you to give the organization a shot. Worst case, if you really do hate it and you really don't enjoy the mission of the APP or what they do, you're not required to stay a member. You can let your membership lapse. I have many friends who, for a variety of their own reasons, opt not to be members. And I still cherish them as friends and as incredibly amazing and talented piercers, artists, jewelers, and makers within this industry. But I would really encourage you to give the organization a chance. And I wanted to make this video to make it clear that just because you see piercers trying to offer advice or give feedback, or just because you reached out to a piercer and they told you something that you did was wrong or bad, the vast majority of the time it's coming from a place of sincerely wanting the industry to be better. And hey, my inbox is always open. If you need advice, if you need help, if you have questions about things, my Instagram is there. I have my contact form on my website. I can't promise I'm always the fastest to respond. I'm very often either traveling for work or busy with my own things, but give me typically anywhere from 2 to 3 days and you will get a response. I answer every message I get. And no offense to all of the amazing, wonderful folks out there who are not my in-person clients but still reach out to me for piercing help and troubleshooting. I definitely prioritize other piercers and apprentices. If I've only got time to answer a couple messages that day and I've got some from other people in the industry, those are usually the ones that I get to first because I really, from the bottom of my heart, want to share education, share safety, and make this industry better. And for me, there's no better way to do that than as a member of the Association of Professional Piercers. All right, folks, thanks so much for sitting down and letting me chat about this very piercer specific one. And we will be back to our regularly scheduled programming next week. I can't wait to sit down and chat with y'all again soon. Bye.